Turn it up a little, man. Turn it up.
Before we return to our show,
The situations and characterizations on this show are fictitious.
Oh, man. Those guys are wearing dresses, man. I don't believe it.
Any transmission, reproduction, or rebroadcast of this show
Tape record the show, you know?
is prohibited. Theft of comedy material is a crime,
and listen to what this young man has to say.
punishable by not less than 15 years in a federal penitentiary.
All right, now that the disclaimers are out of the way.
Oh,
I know. Now I need disclaimers because I'm so funny.
You know, yeah, we're going to go with that.
Yeah, because, you should always consult with your own doctor and stuff,
That's true.
because you got to put that out there. So the views and advice and everything of you do not reflect
That's why it's like when people message on the page or like the staff, it's like, we cannot give you specific advice. If you're our patient, call our office. If you're not our patient, call your doctor's office. But we can talk about general medical principles, and then you can discuss that with your own medical professional.
You can't call them up and say, look, am I dying? And they say, no. And then, you die and your family sues. Nope.
Well, and the other thing is
Am I
like
being extreme?
I have a lot of patients, and being in a small town, some of my patients know me personally, and it's like I have over 2,000 patients. Even if a 10th of those text me in a day, that'd be 200 texts. I try to keep my business as business. I have, let's keep that through the business lines because I like to be a human outside of my job as well.
That's why we need to give you a cool radio name. So that way when you're like on, then you go by that name. And then when you're off, then you go by your real name. See? That way there's a distinction between when you're on air and when you're not.
But you're always Doc Bryce.
No, not really.
Oh, I'll see.
No, when I clock out, I clock out.
Oh, I'll see. Good.
Yeah, I avoid everybody.
Well, I'll leave that up to you then. You have to find me a good name. We got some questions.
Yeah. You want to start with your questions over there, Duck?
Well, I sent it to her.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So you got
I'm
the
looking
question
for
from Doc Bryce over
Hey,
there.
how can people send questions again?
501-313-0944. The anonymous text line.
Yeah,
If
we should
you,
get that sponsored.
Well, it is kind of sponsored.
Is it?
Well, by all of the fine folks that sponsor the Roundtable.
Oh, I was thinking like something specific, like the Jim Golden Ford anonymous line or something like that, as an
Oh,
example. Yeah.
I see.
You know what? I'll work on that.
Yeah. It'd be kind of cool.
So a couple of these kind of have a little bit of maybe something to do with each other, but let's get through these. The first one is, I've used Tide for years. Is there any way that I'm all of a sudden allergic to it? And yes. One, they can change the formula, and it may not seem like much to them because it's this soap for that soap, but you can be allergic to certain additives and things. And so that can happen. And then two, you can become allergic to anything that you have contact with. So if you have contact dermatitis, then it very well could be that you've become allergic to something that you're exposed to frequently.
Feels like your legs are on fire.
In an extreme example, some people that aren't allergic to copper can become allergic to copper. And when that becomes apparent is when you have a copper IUD, which is it's a birth control device that's inside the uterus.
Oh, not the explosive.
So women can have an intrauterine device that's made of copper and become allergic to copper.
That's IUD, not IED.
People get those confused a lot.
While it's inside the body, you can have something in your body that you are allergic to.
That is no fun at all.
No. But that would be a rare thing, but that is the case. So you can become allergic. But if you have a rash that you haven't had a doctor look at and it's not going away, you should probably have a doctor look at it. Rashes are rashy.
Well, yeah,
They're so itchy.
Maybe.
They're so scratchy.
Sometimes they hurt. Sometimes they don't feel anything.
Sometimes they feel really good when you scratch them.
Sometimes they're weepy.
Oh, yeah, you don't want the weepy ones.
And you don't want the leaky ones either.
No, those are just sad.
I've been diagnosed with RA. Do I have to change my diet? Not specifically for RA. There may be some things that I would try to change based on medications that you might be on.
Now, what is RA?
Rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh, okay, that's bad.
It's an autoimmune condition. So all that means with autoimmune condition is it means that your immune system makes antibodies that helps your immune system fight off attackers. And it happened to make antibodies to things that are in your joints.
See, I love my listeners, okay, because they call it up and they say, I've been diagnosed with RA. And I'm like, okay. I'm sure there's a cream for that.
I was an RA in college.
So,
but
anyway.
So depending on what treatments that you're on. So if you're on, like, for example, methotrexate, I would try to take extra B12 and folate and try to increase the B12 and folate quality of my foods, natural resources as well, because it can reduce your B12 and folate. If I had an autoimmune condition, I would really try to get rid of simple carbs because my body's already going to be making more inflammation markers naturally. I don't need high sugar stuff that may increase my inflammation levels. But that's not really from a great science. That's probably, I tell people I have 3 buckets. I have like a bucket that's like, this is good science. We've known this for years. These are the guidelines. And then there's a middle bucket. That's what I call my medical opinion. I use the example of COVID vaccination and pregnancy. We know a lot about pregnancy. We know a lot about COVID. We know a lot about COVID vaccination. I know my first degree's in chemistry. I know a lot about vaccines in general. And chemicals and things. And so I take all that knowledge and I make a recommendation, but it's not in the other bucket yet because we don't have 10, 15, 20 years of data yet, right? And so it's going to stay in the medical opinion bucket until we learn enough to put it into, firm guidelines. And so, and then we have my bucket that I keep on the other side, and that's what I call my woo-woo bucket. And
when she needs to pull something out of her butt, folks. Okay,
some things my mama taught me, whatever. But most of it is still based on scientific principles. And there is some evidence to show that high sugar content and easy carb, like simple, bad for you type carbs, not all carbs are bad. But diets high in that you can have more inflammation in your body than others. There's also an increase in inflammation markers in the body just with weight. So if you're overweight, losing weight can help protect your joints and reduce your inflammation markers. So like I said, there's not direct evidence that eating right and losing weight will help with your rheumatoid, but you know that you have an inflammatory condition. And if you get rid of other sources of inflammation, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
But, my teenage daughter weighs 90 pounds and won't eat. Should I be worried? That by itself, not necessarily. Depends on the height of the child, right? I was a very skinny child. But this next part is what would worry me, and that's that she throws up when she does eat. And that would be extremely worrisome. Mainly because, one, you can have GI problems like celiac or a gluten allergy or reflux. There's some very, obvious physical things. And then you have things like bulimia and like mental health disorders, which I don't even like calling it that because it's still a medical condition and you still need medical treatment, And so, so there's a lot of different things this could be, but all of them should be assessed by a doctor.
Okay.
And then I'm experiencing soreness in the skin on my back. Is it shingles? The skin is tender, but no rash or irritation. Shingles usually will pop up that very characteristic rash. It looks like chickenpox, and it'll be on one side only. It won't cross the midline. So if you have something that's crossing the midline, then it's probably not shingles. I'm not aware of instances where it doesn't cause the rash, but I can do some research into that. Because most of the time the tenderness comes on and you don't see anything, and then a few days later the rash comes. So if in a day or so the rash comes and it wasn't shingles. And if you're over 50 and you haven't had shingles, you can still get your shingle shot. So go get that. I need to do that video because it's like shingles. I've had shingles, and you can have shingles when you're super stressed out. If you've had chickenpox in your life, you cannot get shingles if you never had chickenpox. And my mom was an anti-vaxxer, so I didn't get chickenpox vaccine.
My mom just walked into one of my aunt's houses where they already had chickenpox and said, all right, we're getting all of this done at once.
Yeah, That
was our mentality.
And there's still people that do pox parties. But if you've had a bad case of the shingles before or saw one, you would not want that for your child. Because shingles, like if you take my case of shingles, it started as like a weird skin irritation just on one rib almost. And then it's like a tiny, less than a quarter size cluster of those vesicles. And it itched like a really intense itching, but it didn't hurt. And it went away really quick after I took the medicine. So it really wasn't that bad, right? So would you need the shingles vaccine if that's what it was going to be like? No, it wasn't bad, right? Bad news is you don't know what straw you're going to draw in that game until you draw it. And you might get the short straw. And some people have dormant chickenpox virus in a nerve that feeds the skin around their eye. And the first time that you see shingles around someone's eyeball,
that will wake you up.
You will wish you've had your shingle shot. That person wishes they had their shingle shot because you can actually get ulcerations of the cornea, so the white of the eye, and have scarring and loss of vision from shingles.
See, none of that sounds like a good time.
Ulceration of your eyeballs. No thanks. I'm going to skip that. And Shingrix, which is the current shingle shot, it was probably out about 5 or 6 years ago, I think now. And the Shingrix is a series of 2 shots. You never have to get them again. They're a month apart. You get them from your pharmacy. Insurance companies are a little spotty on who covers it, but it will reduce your risk of shingles by 90%. The Zostavax, which was the single shingles shot before Shingrix, the Zostavax was more like 50% reduction. But it also reduced your risk of ever having, if you did still get shingles, you weren't as likely to get the chronic pain syndrome around it. So you can get neuralgia after shingles, where even after the shingles goes away, you still have pain in that area where the rash was. And so again, severe pain in your eyeball is not fun. And so you can have this post-herpetic neuralgia that can happen. And even the Zostavax, so if you got the Zostavax, you'd be less likely to get shingles and much less likely to have complications from the shingles like post-herpetic neuralgia. But the Zostavax is nothing compared to the Shingrix, a 90% reduction. There's usually when scientists make vaccines, their goal is like a 70% reduction, right? That we can protect, 70% of the time. Because then you still get that, well, it still helps. If you still get it, it might be more mild, right? Or you might be less likely to die and end up in the hospital, which is why we make vaccines, right? And so to have a 90% reduction in something is amazing.
Well, see, I thought vaccines were just the cure-all.
So vaccines are using your natural immune system to fight something off. And so what happens, your body makes antibodies. And what is an antibody? You can imagine that an antibody is like a name tag. All right. It's an identification marker. And so your body makes antibodies that say, mine make antibodies that say chickenpox. Because I've had chickenpox, and it's one of those things that you kind of keep the antibodies usually. And that's why you don't keep getting shingles recurrence, is because your body kind of keeps it fall off, right? And so your body naturally has antibodies, and it has like a library of these name tags, right? And so when it comes up across a new person that it's never met before, it's going through its library and trying to give it a name tag, right? And once it finds the right name tag, it says, make a bunch more of those name tags. There's a bunch of these guys, right? And it labels them with an antibody. And what that bonding of that antibody and the antigen, so that name tag going on that person, it signals the immune system to kill that thing. And so when we do vaccines and things, I got my COVID shot. What I was doing was I was providing my body with a name tag to identify COVID, right? And so when I would get exposed to COVID, my body would see that immediately and slap a name tag on it because it already had the name tags. when people that aren't vaccinated come up, their body's trying to find the right name tag for a while. And viruses multiply very quickly. And so while your body's trying to find the right name tag, and then it finds the right name tag and it makes a whole bunch more of them, but that virus is already replicating. Right?
Right.
And so by the time you get enough name tags for all those viral particles, that virus is already winning for some time. Right? And you can get very sick. So the goal is to prime our natural immune system so that we can identify the intruder faster so that they can't get replicating. Does that make sense?
Right.
So it's not some magic wand that like, boom, you can't get this thing. It just relies on your own natural immunity to utilize that antibody to kill that you're allowing your immune system quicker notification that there's an intruder, like, and what that intruder is and how to fight it. And so your body there's still a component that's individual to each body, right? It's not like the pill for your blood pressure that works the same for everybody. You know, your immune system is the one actually doing the work in the vaccine. And so it kind of depends on your individual person, how well it works. And that's why there's not a 100% it works all the time. That's why 90% is awesome, right? Because more like 70-ish is our goal.
Right.
Because there's room for error when we're still utilizing the immune system's natural machinery and we're really modifying the immune system, not really by giving it a name tag, allowing it to find its name tag and replicate that name tag.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so that's how all vaccines work. There's a variety of how they're made, but that is how all vaccines work. And in that discussion, like for the rheumatoid, your body makes name tags for things that are found in your joints. Yeah. And the second that name tag goes on, it says kill it.
Dude, don't label me.
I know. And so your body tries to kill things that it should not try to kill. And that's the same for all autoimmune conditions. So there's an autoimmune thyroid condition. There's pancreas autoimmune. That's what diabetes type 1 is. Your body attacks its own pancreas and it can't make insulin anymore. There's autoimmune like liver conditions and lung conditions and gut conditions where your body attacks things inside your body. Right. So the idea that a vaccine is going to do something crazy is like, there's plenty of people that don't get vaccinated that still get autoimmune conditions. It's more, back in the Dark Ages, King in Britain in like the 1600s, maybe.
Edward?
No, it was an A.
Albert?
What was that?
Anastasia?
No, it wasn't Arthur.
King Arthur. He did the round table.
No, it wasn't Arthur. Anywho, they believe that he died of Crohn's. And Crohn's is an autoimmune condition. But it's also one of those things that people think that by taking vaccines, you may be more likely to have that. And it's like Crohn's existed way before vaccinations. And even then, it's like modification of the immune system. We've been doing that since smallpox. It's like they just gave you cowpox instead. That's
Alfred.
Alfred, that's right.
Alfred the Great, Doc.
The Great?
King Alfred the Great.
He was accredited with uniting Britain, I think.
Alfred sounds more he should have changed his name to something cooler. He sounds like a butler.
But they think he died
You just got the Batman syndrome.
They think he died of
Crohn's. On the 26th day of October, 899.
Oh, I was way off.
Wow, Crohn's has been around that long?
That's why people think it's like just because you have your vaccines can cause autoimmune. It's like, no, autoimmune just happens. Like it's a natural thing. And we may be able to modify it and treat it, but it's going to happen whether or not there were vaccinations.
Okay.
And used to just way more people died from it. And so genetically, they weren't passing on as much material.
I got you.
So, now the last one was on the text line. What was that number again?
Text line is 501-313-0944. You can always call in live, 836-9559. We'll never make fun of you.
ever.
We don't even know who you are.
I will adjust these people. Who did I talk to this week? And they're like, I listen to you every day. And then they asked me a question. And I was like, why don't you call into the radio show? He's like, oh, I can't do that. Who was I talking to? I can't say it on the radio anyway. But all right. But if you're listening, I know, see, I'm thinking of you. You should call in and with that question.
501-313-0944, the text line.
And then one of the text lines said, could you please discuss degenerative disc disease symptoms and treatment?
Degenerative disc disease.
Yes. So
That sounds like a back issue.
it is a back issue.
Okay.
And in the back, your spine is a column of things stacked on top of each other. And so you get a bone and then a little spongy disc and then a bone and a little spongy disc and then a bone and a little, all the way from the base of your skull to the tip of your tailbone, right between your butt cheeks, right at the top. You have bones layered in between spongy discs. And when you're talking about degenerative disc disease, it all depends on what's going on because there's a lot of new information coming out. So used to, we get an x-ray and we tell you, oh, you've got some mild arthritis. Well, now, if you x-ray like all 30 to 40-year-olds, there's some percentage of them that are going to have those quote-unquote arthritis changes and have no symptoms, right? And so when we have somebody that's having symptoms, and we take an x-ray, and it shows mild arthritis, and then they're like, oh, that's why I have my back pain. Well, maybe, but all these people have the same thing, and it's not causing them pain.
So if we want to recognize one from the other, what do we have to do?
Well, to be honest, the biggest thing is maintaining good back health and having good, I'm trying to think of my word, ergonomics in your day-to-day activities. And so that one of the first things that you can do for good back health is sleep well. I've got...
Yeah, good night's sleep is always, great for the doctor's orders. But sometimes, when you're suffering from problems with your back, you have a hard time sleeping.
Right. And what I would recommend is to especially get online and look up chair yoga for the lower back. And you can get very good relaxation and mobility work and strengthening through yoga. And you can do that there. But we also have a really great yoga instructor here in town, Yoga with Linda. And she does like a group class on Saturday mornings where she gives you free coffee. So.
Well, I like free.
I know.
like coffee.
So I would highly recommend mobility, something for mobility of the lower back. Sleeping is super important, but more than anything, it's the spending time laying down that can help maintain the joint spaces. Drinking plenty of water. So there's good evidence to show that those discs get smaller on days that you don't drink enough water. And how many people drank at least 1 cup of water yesterday?
I did.
How many people do you think probably did?
Well, everybody should have drank at least 1 cup.
There are people that drink no water during the day.
I
Oh,
had
you
32 ounces yesterday.
you people are you need a role model because you
32 ounces of water?
Yeah.
Plain water, not like
The
with
water
soda
that,
in it.
The water that we got in the back that we got from the hot springs.
Oh, cool.
It's good water.
Well, the most important thing is to drink plenty of water. And how do you know how much? You can do all kinds of weird calculations based on the internet. But what I want you to do is just look at the toilet when you pee. And if it doesn't look clear, you probably need to drink more water.
So if it looks like beer, drink more
You need to
water.
drink a lot more water. If it looks like Coca-Cola, you should see your doctor.
Ooh.
But
All right. Well, I'm glad we were able to clear that up.
I see what you did there.
I see that. That was good. But making sure that you're drinking plenty of water is good for your back health. And then the other thing is not getting into a dangerous position. You have tiny little strap muscles that control the mobility of the lumbar spine. And I'll see people that, they lift terribly, like any kind of weight. But I'll have people that think that, I dropped an ink pen, so I'll just hinge at the waist and bend down and pick it up. You just use the strap muscles on your back to support your entire upper body weight. those muscles were not meant to do that. The biggest muscles in the human body are your gluteal muscles, which are your butt muscles. Those muscles are the ones that were designed to keep you upright. And so every time you just hinge at the waist and come up, you're actually using more of your back muscles than your butt muscles. And so if you can't get your bottom down in order to squat to pick something up, you can, one, practice makes perfect.
Grab it with your toes.
You can grab it with your toes. You can put your weight onto a counter while you bend over, because you just don't want all that upper body weight only supported by your lower back, right? And so you can put your weight into the counter. You can kneel and pick something up. But how I tell people you can tell if you're lifting something wrong, even if it's a pen, a piece of paper, it doesn't matter, especially if you're overweight, because you're going to put all that extra weight in those tiny strap muscles that did not change in size, right? And so if you're wearing a necklace, imagine that any position where that necklace is dangling is not a good position, all right? Because anytime you get into that position, it means that your upper body, the weight, the center of gravity is moving forward, and it's going to put stress on that lower back. So
stress is bad.
Try to designate good sleep times. We can talk about good sleep anytime. That can be its own whole separate discussion, but trying to get at least 8 hours of sleep or rest. And just because you wake up doesn't mean you didn't get good sleep, because that it's normal to have awakenings. But it's more about time frame. And part of that is just training yourself. I get in bed at 10 o'clock every single night. I wake up at 6 every single morning. And then that way your brain knows that those are the times we're supposed to be asleep, and it will be sleepier during those times for it. So trying to protect that sleep time, trying to make sure that if you have some noises, like I like to have a noise machine going on in my room because I'm sensitive to noises, they'll wake me up. You want to make sure that you don't have a TV in the room. I know that steps on a lot of people's toes, but I'll try to get some buy-in power. Couples that have TVs in the bedroom have less snuggle times.
Them's fighting words right there.
Couples that have TVs in the bedroom have less sex.
Well, what if you have a TV in your bedroom and you
you can't watch them movies, okay?
And you just leave the TV on and you fall asleep.
Studies show that any TV in the bedroom, you get less deep sleep. So that sleep that makes it to where you feel better afterward, not that kind of sleep that you get and you feel terrible afterward. That's not good sleep. But studies show that even if you never turn the TV on, our primal brains associate screens with activity. And so even if its presence is in the room, you will get less sleep. And if it's in the room and y'all watch TV, you will have less sex.
Well, there you go.
So,
because no matter how good you are in a sack, there's always something more entertaining on TV.
I'm just wondering who's watching these people at night in their bedrooms. Who did this study?
Now it's a new government conspiracy.
That's just creepy.
They're watching you through your smart TV camera.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Okay, boys and girls, it's the Roundtable, brought to you in part by our friends out at First Choice Family Care, Dr. Smith and staff. Now, if you've got serious questions for the doctor, remember, you can always text them in, 501-313-0944. Phone them in, 836-9559.
Not just serious ones.
Well, no, you can ask us anything.
You can send her a dad joke. She loves those.
I love dad jokes. Hey, why'd the man work in a barn his whole life?
I don't know.
It was a stable career. JJ doesn't even know what to say. Yes, my day is perfect. I've silenced JJ.
All right.
She has stumped the great.
I know.
Catering is available from the Flaming Pig. I do know that. 818-5984. Watch their Facebook for upcoming events. SAU Tech. Go to sautech.edu. Get you some class. Go Rockets. St. John's Place in Fordyce, Washington Nursing and Rehab in Camden. Short-term therapy services on top of all of their normal rehabilitation and long-term care needs. Learn more online, stjohnsplaceofarkansas.com, washingtonnursing.com. First Choice Family Care, new patient packets available at myfirstchoicecare.com. Be sure and check out Dr. Smith on Facebook, TikTok, and
I think
all
I
of
have
our
a video about. I have a
podcasts and-
video about back pain on Facebook. I'm pretty sure.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah. Now, is that on the Dr. Smith Facebook?
I think so. I'll have
Or
to
the
look.
First Choice Facebook?
I think it's through the First Choice, but I'll have to look.
Just go to Facebook and look in the archives.
Yeah, roam around.
OCMC's Chemical Dependency Unit. Addiction's tough, man, especially at this time of the year. Make the choice to be a better you. If you're struggling, call these people up, 870-836-1289, 1-800-232-1289. Just remember, all calls are confidential. Mitch Lowe's Body Shop. If you put it in the ditch, just call
Jerry.
at Mitch Lowe's Body Shop, 837-2560. Everybody's Antiques in El Dorado. Corner of Bradley and West Hillsboro, 120 booths, 31,000 square feet. Year-end clearance sales. I promise you they're going on. Shop them online at everybodiesantiques.com. Call 870-875-1444. Stories, Floor, and Carpet inviting you to visualize. You can visualize your new room with new flooring from storiesfloor.com. Upload your photo into the room visualizer and see your options. 870-862-9446 and by Elite Fitness Club. They are a premier 24-hour fitness facility. Go down there and see Nick May. He's the owner-operator of said facility. He'd be more than happy to go through all of the options that are available at Elite Fitness Clubs. 24-hour service. Good stuff. Let's see. 870-231-3880 will get you right through to Elite Fitness. All right, guys. We are out of here for the day, but we'll be back in here tomorrow with the roundtable. Remember, if you can come up with a question for the doctor, I don't mind. Stop me in the produce aisle. We love talking about it while you've got a big cucumber in your hand.
Catch the podcast.
Yes. Oh, and you rerun Dr. Smith's segment on Saturdays?
Saturday, 5:30 after Bruce Westerman.
So that's in the morning
5:30 a.m. after Bruce Westerman.
on a Saturday.
On a Saturday. Or you can get it now and just listen to the podcast. That way you don't have to wake up at 5:30 something in the morning after Bruce Westerman to tune in.
And where would they find said podcast there, Doc Bryce?
They could go to Spreaker and do a search for Dr. Jera. You could go to Google Podcast, do a search for Dr. Jera. You could just search for Dr. Jera on your favorite podcast platform.
All right, there you go. Dr. Jera, thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we got to get through this. He's got to get through that, and we'll be back.